The information war. I lived through a time before the internet. It was not much different from now, except that people got most of their important information from the man in the pub. Did you know that dogs can't look up and fish only have memories of 3 seconds? No, I didn't realise that dogs can't look up and that fish only have a memory of 3 seconds. And then they'd pass their information on to somebody else. Did you know that fish can't look up and that dogs can't remember stuff? Yeah, I don't think that's right. I'm going to do a search on the Tinternet. I thought the Tinternet was going to change everything. Before the Tinternet, there was so much misinformation. How could you find out whether things were true or not? You had to do research in books and magazines and ask experts. With the best will in the world, who had time for that? Now you just do a search on fish memory studies. But then the idiots and the liars learnt to use the internet. Dogs can't look up. The information war is absolutely vital. It always has been. It is the stories that we understand and tell ourselves that makes us act in the way we do. If you control those stories, you can control people. And during times of war, it is why people will risk their own lives, risk the lives of their families and friends, and it is the reason people are willing to kill other people. I will restrict myself to 3 groups who are trying to influence the information war in the Ukraine invasions. These groups are Putin and the Russian side, the Ukrainians and the West. For us, that's particularly the UK government, the UK media, as well as NATO. Russia. Putin appears to have dictatorial control over the flow of information in Russia, using extremely forceful methods in his own country, and anyone who disagrees is forcefully dealt with. Why do you think Putin goes to such efforts to control what people know? Information controls people's actions. However, Putin's lies sound ridiculous to us in the West. What? Putin wants to save Ukraine? Putin says Ukrainians and Russians are essentially the same historically and spiritually, and so they should be ruled by Russia. Ukraine has a puppet government controlled by us in the West. We have put in place President Zelensky, who is a thug, a drug addict and a Nazi. This is strange considering he's Jewish. We have seen plenty of footage of Russian troops deliberately targeting civilians in Ukraine, killing women and children and bombing hospitals, all of which the Kremlin denies to be true. Putin's strong control of information in his own country is much more successful than it has been for us in the West. According to news channels such as the BBC, Channel 4 and NPR, Putin has signed a law that makes it a criminal offence to spread what he says is fake news about armed forces, or to take action in public that denigrates Russian soldiers. Russians will also be punished if they agree to promote the restrictions against Russia, like sanctions. People in Russia that say things that Putin does not like will be seriously fined or even imprisoned for as much as 15 years. In Russia, protesters against the war have been beaten and kicked by Russian police. Thousands have been arrested. The news agencies are state-run, which means that the news agencies are controlled by Putin. Nearly all other independent news agencies are blocked, shut down, or chose that they would rather suspend operations given the pressure from the state. It is illegal to call what is happening in Ukraine a war or an invasion, but one brave reporter, Mariana Ovsyannikova, warns viewers not to believe Russian propaganda before she is arrested and fined. Social media has been targeted. The Kremlin prevents Russians from checking Facebook or Twitter. Ukraine. Ukraine also needs to fight an information war. It is vital for encouraging troops to keep up morale and give his soldiers the belief that their actions mean something. Zelensky himself enters the information war. Zelensky proves bravery and displays the courage of the Ukrainians in his refusal to leave the capital city, to film himself at work and part of the fight, showing the astonishing bravery of all Ukrainians trying to save their home, showing the heartbreaking split of their families to defend the land so horrifically invaded. But is the information from Ukraine trustworthy? The Ukrainian fight for survival is dependent on the right stories and on giving people hope. From the 12th of March, WION point out that there are significant differences in the numbers of casualties the Ukrainians and Russians report. The Ukrainians claim that they have inflicted as much as 11,000 Russian casualties. The Russians say it's as little as 487. The Ukrainians claim they have destroyed 300 Russian tanks. The Russians claim they have destroyed 900 Ukrainian tanks. Both sides say the other side is lying. But how can we know the true figure and the true picture? Access to the combat zone is deadly. No independent observer can give their assessment. As so much depends on the information war for the Ukrainians, can we believe that certain information is not being filtered, changed, guessed, or even made up? And finally, the West. If you think that I am biased in my portrayal of the conflict so far, you're thinking the right way. You're certainly right, not deliberately, though I very much understand that NATO and Western countries have a level of responsibility. I'm still the product of the information that I've read and have seen. But why is being a part of the information war important to Western countries? Okay, war is terrible. But why would we want to tell a story that portrays the Ukrainians as the victims and the Putin government as ruthless invaders? Partly because the UK government needs us to believe they are doing what is best for global security, so that they can take the action that they are taking. The West and the East have been long rivals, with a very real old fear of socialist takeover. The only real way to stop Putin's expansion and crimes against humanity is for the rest of the world to act together. The only way that the rest of the world can act together is with an understanding that justifies their actions. Can I believe what I've seen and read? Am I doing Russia a disservice by not acknowledging their fears of threat, the threat that the West posed to them? Can that justify Putin's actions in Ukraine? If I think that people in Russia have been fed only the information that the Kremlin wants them to hear, why can't the same be true of me? One benefit we have that those in Russia do not have is that we get our information from a number of sources. We hear from government, broadcast media, printed media, a variety of scholarly thinkers, those in and escaping the conflict, and social media. However, Ofcom has revoked RT's license to broadcast in the UK. RT is the Russian state media channel. RT cannot can't broadcast or use YouTube. Ofcom says that RT is not fit or appropriate to hold a license. So how can we understand the Russian position without the filter of Western media if we cannot listen to them directly? Is Ofcom protecting us from Russian lies and propaganda, or is it suppressing the Russian point of view? We understand that the Russian state media cannot be trusted. It is controlled by a ruthless authoritarian system. In the UK, we have a free press that is not controlled by the state.
Does this mean we can trust that we have access to the truth? This is a huge and complicated subject with no simple answer. Recently, companies have manipulated our own biases to influence us. Ask yourself if you can understand what is true when you hear it. A behavioral scientist called Pragya Agrawal says that we are all biased. That is how our brains work because of evolution and because there is much too much information for our brains to cope with. She says it is our responsibility to understand that we have biases so that when we are challenged, we can listen properly. The people and organizations that give us news are also biased because they're human. In addition to unintentional biases, importantly, some people and organizations have agendas. They may really want to persuade us to believe their point of view. There are a bunch of other factors that stand in the way of us seeing the world properly. Wow, good luck.
Importantly, there is social media. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Google have enormous influence on how people think. And it is the people who think that they are not effective that are most vulnerable to unfair persuasion. It is very complicated to say whether we can trust social media and who it is that is influencing how we think. So, tell me, how do you know who to trust?